Number 1. You know how some nights just stay with you? Like, years later, you can still smell the air, still hear the sounds, still feel the way your stomach dropped. I don't talk about that night much, but I can't shake it. I think part of me tells it just to remind myself that it really happened. It was a few years ago, late September. I was working the night shift at the hospital, the ER. You remember how rough those shifts were. The kind that start at sunset and end when the sun's already rising, and you can't tell if you're exhausted or numb. That night had been bad. A kid came in with gunshot wounds, a few overdoses, one little girl burning up with a fever that wouldn't break. By the time it was over, I just felt hollow. That's the word, hollow. It was almost 2 in the morning when I finally clocked out. The air outside was thick with fog, the kind that turns the city into a different place. The streets were empty, streetlights hazy and far apart. I remember the smell, damp asphalt, a faint trace of disinfectant from the hospital, and underneath it, that metallic tang of the garbage bins behind the building. I pulled out my phone, 3% battery, and ordered a Lyft. I didn't want to wait. I just wanted to be home. The driver's name was Marcus. For stars, silver sedan, said he'd be there in 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes felt endless. I was standing there with my arms crossed, watching my own breath fog up in the air, listening to the faint crunch of leaves under my shoes. Every few seconds, I thought I heard footsteps behind me, but when I turned, there was no one. When the car finally came through the fog, the headlights looked strange, like 2 bright circles cutting through a wall of white. It pulled up slow, the sound of tires on wet pavement the only noise in the whole world. I remember that first click when the door opened. I don't know why, but it sounded louder than it should have. He asked if I was Elena. His voice was flat. Tired maybe, or practiced. I nodded and got in. The seat was freezing cold, and everything inside the car was spotless. No smell of fast food, no loose papers, no crumbs. Just leather and a faint scent of some air freshener that I couldn't quite place. It looked like a little ghost hanging from the rearview mirror. It kept spinning, slow, in the air from the vents. For the first few minutes, it was quiet. I was fine with that. I was too drained to talk. The city outside the window was a blur of fog and faint light, the kind of stillness that makes you start hearing your own heartbeat. Then something started to feel off. I couldn't explain it. It wasn't anything he said or did. It was more like an awareness. Like the air in the car was too still. I glanced up and realized the rearview mirror wasn't pointed toward the road. It was angled directly at me. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe he'd adjusted it weirdly, or maybe it was a trick of the light. I shifted a bit in my seat, trying to see if he'd move it back. He didn't. My phone buzzed, low battery warning. 1%. I remember thinking, not now, please not now. The road we were on started to look unfamiliar. We were supposed to be heading east, but the lights, the turns, it didn't feel right. I checked the app, and the map looked like it was glitching. The little blue dot jumped around, then froze. That's when my chest started to tighten. He still hadn't said a word. His hands on the wheel were steady. His eyes flicked up to the mirror now and then, just long enough for me to know he was looking. I kept trying to convince myself I was overreacting, that it was just late and I was tired, and maybe he'd taken a detour because of construction or something. But my instincts were screaming. You know that feeling, when your body knows something your mind isn't ready to admit yet. The fog got denser. The world outside disappeared. It felt like the car was floating in nothing. Then we stopped. Not at a light, just in the middle of an empty street. I could see the glow of a traffic signal ahead, but we were still at least a block away from it. The engine idled, the sound low and steady. I looked at the door handle, locked. I looked at my phone, black screen. And that air freshener kept turning, slow, back and forth, catching bits of the dashboard light like a pendulum. He shifted in his seat. Not turning around, just pausing. I heard him breathe in through his nose, slow, controlled. Then he reached toward the console. His hand hovered over it for a moment, and I swear I heard the sound of a lock click again, even though everything was already locked. That sound, that tiny metallic click, that's when I knew something was wrong. I don't remember exactly how long I sat there frozen. Probably just seconds, but it felt like forever. My heartbeat filled the car. I kept my hand near my bag, fingers touching the edge of my keys. I thought about opening the door and running, but the fog outside was so thick I wouldn't have known which way to go. Then the car started moving again, slow this time. He turned onto a smaller road. No traffic, no buildings I recognized. Just rows of trees, the kind that shouldn't even exist in that part of the city. I wanted to say something, ask where we were going, but the words wouldn't come out. I was afraid that if I spoke, it would make everything real. Finally, I forced it out, just a whisper. This isn't my route. He didn't answer. That silence was worse than anything. After maybe another minute, I saw lights ahead, a gas station. The fog broke just enough for the sign to glow through it. I knew if I could just get out of the car there, I'd be okay. So I made myself move. I grabbed my bag, pretended to look for my phone, and said, "Hey, I think I dropped something. Can you pull over a second?" He didn't look at me. His hands stayed tight on the wheel. But the lights from the gas station were getting closer. I knew that was my only chance. The moment the car slowed for the turn, I pulled the handle. The door opened halfway before the lock caught again, but it was enough. I shoved it with my shoulder, fell out onto the pavement, and started running toward the light. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. I could hear the car behind me, just the hum of the engine for a few seconds, then it faded into the fog. When I got to the gas station, there was no one there. Just flickering lights and the sound of the air pump ticking. I sat on the curb until a delivery truck came through maybe 20 minutes later. The driver saw me, asked if I was okay. I lied. Said I just got out of a bad ride. He didn't ask questions. He let me use his phone to call a friend. The next morning, I reported the driver. The app said the account didn't exist anymore. They told me maybe it was a system error. But I know what I saw. I know what I felt in that car. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd hear the sound of that lock clicking shut or see the fog pressing against the window. I moved apartments a few months later, got a new number, deleted every ride app from my phone. Sometimes, though, when it's late and the street outside gets quiet, I swear I can still hear an engine idling. Not loud, just that steady hum. And I get that same feeling again, like something's waiting, watching. I tell myself it's nothing, that I'm safe now. But I don't really believe it. Not anymore. Number 2. I don't talk about this night often. Not because it's over or because I've moved on, but because it still lingers. Even now, I can feel the rain pounding on the roof of my apartment, and suddenly I'm back there, 15 feet away from the edge of panic, wondering what would have happened if I'd moved differently. It was late October, a couple years ago. I'd been celebrating a work milestone with my team at a bar in Midtown. Everything had been great laughter, drinks, that warm, giddy energy when you feel like the city belongs to you. I remember thinking how much I loved my life at that moment, how lucky I was. I stepped out of the bar around 2 a.m. and the sky had opened up. Rain like I'd never seen, pounding against the pavement in sheets, so heavy it blurred the neon signs into long, streaked lines of color. The smell of wet asphalt and coffee from nearby late-night cafes mixed with the metallic tang of the city, and it all hit me at once. I pulled out my phone and ordered a Lyft. It felt like the safest, most normal thing to do. I'd taken rides countless times, and it had always been fine. I just wanted to go home, dry off, crawl into bed, and forget the work celebration. When the SUV arrived, I felt that first flicker of unease. Its windows were black, reflecting nothing back at me. It was the kind of darkness that made you feel like someone or something was watching you. The engine hummed low, just enough to feel alive, but not loud enough to drown out the rain. I got in, and instantly I noticed the smell. It was metallic, like wet iron, with an undercurrent I couldn't identify. Something about it made my stomach twist. The city outside blurred under the windshield wipers. I tried to focus on the GPS, but soon I realized we weren't going where I expected. We turned off the main streets, off the lit avenues, and into quiet, deserted areas, warehouses, streets with broken windows, puddles reflecting impossible angles of light. My pulse started to spike. Something about the emptiness pressed on me. I tried to think rationally. Maybe he knew a shortcut. Maybe the GPS was glitching. Maybe I was imagining it. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. The SUV slowed, then stopped in an empty lot. Rain beat against the roof like a drum. All around me, there was nothing, just darkness, wet concrete, and the occasional drip from the eaves. My phone buzzed, a text from my roommate. "Are you okay? Your route's weird." I froze. She could see where I was. Somehow, he knew I was being tracked. Somehow, he knew. The driver didn't speak at first. He just stared through the rearview mirror. And then I saw it, the cross. Hanging from the mirror, its silver surface scratched and worn, tiny names and dates etched along it. A record. A history. Something he kept. Something I was about to become part of. My throat tightened. I wanted to move, to say something, to do anything, but my body refused. I felt frozen, like the rain had seeped into my skin and weighed me down. Every instinct in me screamed to leave, but there was no way out, not yet. Then he spoke, his voice low, rough, almost a whisper, and it made the car feel smaller. He told me about his sister, about her life, about a night when she took the wrong ride and didn't make it home. I tried to keep listening, but the words became secondary to the feeling of being trapped. The rain outside, the black windows, the hum of the engine, it all closed in, suffocating. He didn't yell or threaten. He didn't need to. Just the calm, deliberate way he talked made it clear. He was in control. The scratches on the cross, the names and dates, they weren't just decorations. They were proof. Proof that he'd done this before. Proof that I could be next. I tried to keep my mind busy. I focused on the rain, the blur of neon lights reflecting in puddles, the GPS on my phone. I pretended I was calm, pretending to text my roommate that everything was fine. She asked me again where I was. I couldn't answer honestly. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. I don't know. The world outside was gone, replaced by the enclosed space of that SUV and the relentless downpour. Every splash of water against the roof sounded like a countdown, each windshield wiper a pendulum ticking toward something. Eventually, I saw a faint glow, streetlights ahead, the city starting to return. I knew this was my chance. I faked looking for my phone, pretending to check a map. When the SUV slowed, I lunged at the door. The lock gave way with a soft click. I fell onto the wet pavement, slipping, my hands scraped on the concrete, rain soaking through my coat. I didn't look back. I ran toward the street, toward any sign of life. I didn't stop running until I reached a main avenue where cars and lights were normal again. I sat on the curb, shivering, and finally called my roommate. The relief when I heard her voice. I can't even describe it. But I didn't tell her everything. Not then. Not ever in full. The next day, I reported the driver. Lyft said the account no longer existed. The police couldn't find anything. But I knew. I knew the cross, the scratches, the silence in the car. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't gone. I don't take rides anymore. I don't go out late. I avoid streets that feel too quiet, puddles that reflect light in strange ways, cars with blacked out windows. And when it rains like that night, when the storm is heavy and the streets are empty, I can still hear it. The hum of an engine that isn't really there. The tapping of rain that sounds like a countdown. And the echo of a voice that says, "Remember your promise." I survived that night, but it never left me. Number 3, you have to promise me something. Just sit here and really listen, because I've never told anyone the full story. Most people hear the first part and think it's over, but it's not. Not even close. It happened a few years ago, just before Halloween. I had been at a party in Soho, a gathering of writers, editors, people who thrived on stories and ideas. The kind of party where the music hums in your chest, where laughter bounces off the walls, where everyone is pretending the night will never end. I was happy, buzzed, feeling like the city was mine. The streets outside the party were empty when I left, the air carrying distant sounds of people in costume, faint laughter, the wind rustling through the trees. The city felt like it was holding its breath. I called a Lyft. Sitting in the back seat, watching the city blur past the window, I usually felt safe. Anonymity has a comfort to it. But that night, it was different. Victor was his name. 3 stars. Not terrible, not great. A white Prius pulled up, headlights cutting through the mist like 2 dull knives. When I got in, the The smell hit me first: cigarettes, damp leather, and something metallic, almost like iron. My chest tightened, my hands gripped my bag tighter. Something was wrong. I could feel it, though I didn't understand why yet. At first, the ride seemed normal. Crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, the cables looming in the fog like skeletal fingers, the river dark beneath us, stretching endlessly. But then he began asking questions, small at first, casual. About my writing, my blog, about my life. Nothing alarming yet, but the way he watched me in the mirror made me shiver. And then he started mentioning details I hadn't shared online. Details I hadn't told anyone. Things I'd buried deep. I froze. My body wanted to move, to escape, but my mind felt caught in a trap. He knew. Somehow, he knew everything. And suddenly, the city outside, the mist, the distant lights, it all felt like it had shifted into a stage built just for this moment, for me alone. We left the main streets. Dark streets, empty streets, streets that shouldn't have existed. Warehouses with broken windows, graffiti smeared across walls, shadows moving unnaturally in the fog. I tried to reason, maybe a shortcut, maybe GPS glitch, but my gut told me I was wrong. Everything about the air felt heavier, thicker, pressing against me. Then he stopped the car. Engine still, the world silent except for faint dripping from the roof and the soft hiss of tires on wet asphalt. And then I saw it, the tattoo on his arm, a woman's face twisted in expression, vines wrapping around her like she was trapped. I don't know why it made my chest tighten, but it did. He didn't threaten me. He didn't need to. He just spoke, calmly, about someone like me, someone who hadn't listened, someone who had made mistakes. And I realized with a sinking feeling that I wasn't just in a car. I was in a story that had been written long before I arrived, a story he was now telling, and I was the main character. I focused on anything I could: the hum of the engine, the feeling of the seat beneath me, the sound of my own breathing, but it was impossible. The fog outside, the shadows in the car, the way he looked at me through the rearview mirror, it was all-consuming. I had to plan, silently, carefully. One wrong move, one thought, one word, and it could change everything. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time was meaningless. Every second stretched until my thoughts felt like liquid, flowing and heavy in my skull. My hands hovered over the door handle, over my bag, over my phone. Each option was dangerous. Each choice felt like it could trap me further. Finally, I saw a faint glow in the distance, a streetlight reflecting in a puddle. A chance. I faked searching for my phone, pretending not to notice him, while preparing to escape. When the car slowed, I lunged. The door opened just enough, and I slipped into the wet street, scraping my hands and knees on the concrete. Rain soaked through my clothes immediately. I ran, slipping, sliding, heart hammering, adrenaline roaring in my chest. Every shadow in the mist felt alive. Every reflection in puddles was him, watching, waiting. I didn't stop until I reached a main avenue, lights and life again, until I could finally breathe without feeling the pressure of his attention. Even now, years later, I feel it. Every time I sit in a back seat, even a taxi, even a friend's car, I check the mirrors, the windows, the way the driver moves. Every notification on my phone, every shadow in a corner, every flicker of light in the night makes me flinch. That night didn't just scare me, it changed me. It left a quiet weight, like a pulse beneath my skin, reminding me that some people see more than you think, that some people plan, watch, and wait. And the worst part? Sometimes I swear I feel him again. Not physically, but in the air, in the fog, in the quiet moments when the city should feel safe. Every time a car passes too slowly, every time a shadow stretches across the sidewalk, I remember that night, the mist, the tattoo, the way he knew everything about me. I survived, but I am never the same. And you listen, really listen. There are people like him out there. People who see what you don't. People who wait. People who know. You might never notice until it's too late.